From Eyewitness News, this is Newsmakers.
Back in 2003, Rhode Island's top Republican was the chief cheerleader for giving a 20-year lottery contract to GTech.
It would be the catalyst for a lot of good things to happen.
Today, GTech is called IGT, and now the state's Republicans are leading the charge against extending the deal. Why the change of heart, and what do local GOP leaders think about the drive to impeach President Trump? This week on the first half of Newsmakers, Rhode Island Republican Party Chair Sue Cienki. Then, from the drama in Washington to a blockbuster U.S. Senate primary in Massachusetts, we break down the latest headlines with our political roundtable on the second half of Newsmakers. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. Eyewitness News political analyst Joe Fleming will join us on the second half, but with me now is Eyewitness News reporter Ted Nesi. Ted, good to see you, and Sue Cienki, chair of the Rhode Island Republican Party. Welcome back to the program. It's good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with that IGT Twin River situation. This can be very confusing to people at home, but to summarize it, if you will, IGT, with the support of the governor, wants to extend its contract with Rhode Island to manage the lottery and casino gaming operations. Twin River wants a competitive bidding process, but the governor says that could put up to 1,100 jobs at risk. All right. In 2003, as I said in the open, Republican Governor Don Carcieri championed the state contract between GTech, which is now IGT, and Rhode Island to provide those lottery services. Fast forward to 2019, a Democratic governor is looking to extend that contract. And I got to tell you, the optics are your party now opposes it because it's a Democrat.
No, and I think that that's wrong. I think our party opposes it because we believe it's a bad way to do business. In 2000,
was it an okay way to do business in 2003?
Well, in 2003, the landscape was very different. GTech was a homegrown company at that point. Right now, it's owned by an Italian company. So it's very different. And of course, gambling has changed over 20 years. You know, and the deal that was entered into, IGT at that time would get 50% of the video game slot revenue. Now they want 85%. And video gaming has changed over 20 years. You look at millennials now, they're not playing video slots, they're playing interactive gaming.
Yeah, but fundamentally, he picked a winner in 2003, and that's what is, you know, you could say is happening right now. Details aside, fundamentally, it's the same thing.
No, and I think the landscape, you have to look at how the landscape has changed in the gaming industry. It has significantly changed. There were no casinos in Massachusetts when Governor Carcieri entered into it. So if it was a bad deal, quite possibly to enter into a 20-year deal, why don't we learn from our mistakes and say, wait a minute, a 20-year deal? Maybe a little too long. So let's look at a competitive bidding process. And after a competitive bidding process, IGT may turn out to be the best deal. But 20 years, that's a long time. So let's make sure that we're doing the best job that we can for the citizens of Rhode Island. IGT, they're doing the best job they can for their shareholders. Absolutely doing a good job. But who's watching out for the residents of Rhode Island?
I was thinking about it this morning, Sue, and when you think about Governor Carcieri, you know, it sometimes feels like the Republicans have repudiated a lot of Governor Carcieri. When I think of the big things from his era, the GTech deal to be extended now, very much opposed. The Deepwater wind farm, which gets national publicity, most Republicans are very critical of that today. 38 Studios, obviously, no one says a good word about that on any side of the aisle anymore. I mean, you know, I guess, do you feel like Governor Carcieri was now kind of was not so much of a Republican because of all these things that are now opposed by his party?
No, I think, you know, 2020, it's always great to be a Monday morning quarterback and say, now that deal doesn't look so good. What he was trying to do was to encourage businesses to look outside the box. So I'm not going to go back and say in 2003 what he did was terrible. What he was trying to do was maybe something innovative. But now 20 years later, you have to look at the landscape that's involved now. And the IGT deal, you know, you want to applaud the governor for trying. You want to applaud her for trying to keep jobs here because that's very important. But in order to keep jobs, is she in effect giving away the store? Is she not really paying attention to 1,100 jobs? What does that actually mean in terms of the entire landscape? And does it go back to our bad business culture in Rhode Island? Do we not have a good business culture? Are we not friendly to businesses? Then in fact, we have to kind of bribe them to stay here. That doesn't send a good message either. If we look at our whole business opportunities here for businesses to grow and to sustain their jobs here, Why aren't we looking at that?
So obviously the biggest critic of this, even more I'd say than the Republicans, has been Twin River, which operates the state's 2 casinos, but doesn't do the technology, which is the piece IGT does. Twin River wants with partners to get that contract. They're saying bid it and then we're going to win it, and it's great. Do you have any concerns about, Twin River already has a very close relationship with state house leaders because of its role in the gambling operation on the casino side. If they also are in this casino contract, do you have any concerns about putting it all the chips in on Twin River and managing so much of the gambling revenue?
So I don't think Twin River has the capacity to do it all by itself. They are entering into that negotiation with Camelot, who could possibly agree with them to do some kind of deal for the state of Rhode Island. But that's why a competitive bidding process is really good, because you want the best deal for the citizens of Rhode Island. And you look at what they offer, both the companies offer, and that's how you get the best deal. Any type of business, if you're looking for a vendor, you look for who's going to give you the best deal and what makes sense for Rhode Island. I
want to dive into the impeachment inquiry into President Trump now, and we're definitely going to get into that more in the second half when we do a political roundtable. But based on what you know, does the president's actions with Ukraine deserve more scrutiny?
Well, I think any time that you have the highest office in the country, you want to make sure that you follow process and procedures. So if the Congress has decided that there is a high crime and misdemeanor that warrants an impeachment inquiry, let's go through the process then. Let's have a vote. Let's take a vote. And, my background is criminal defense attorney, so I always look at both sides of the issue. Let's make sure we have a fair, balanced inquiry. And that includes both sides get to present their issues.
So it sounds like to me you support the inquiry itself.
Let's take a vote. Let's make sure that the Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, takes a vote on the floor to move it forward. And the process is, hey, if somebody feels as if the president did something wrong and it has risen to the level of a high crime and misdemeanor, then you go for impeachment inquiry. I think the Republicans made a huge mistake when they did it with Bill Clinton. What I look at it is, because it's football season, is we have 2 football teams and we're moving sideways. We're not moving towards the goal. And the goal is what is good for the American people. They're fighting so much with each other that this has become a hyper-partisan issue. And the work isn't getting done for the American people. So that nobody's following the rules. It's become hyper-partisan. For me, I'm lucky because I'm the head of the Rhode Island State Republican Party, and there's so many issues in Rhode Island, and that's what I'm really focusing in on. But again, I just think the whole national issue is so hyper-partisan.
Process aside in Congress, when the votes happen and how they go through the impeachment, the underlying behavior that people are debating right now, asking the Ukrainian president to investigate the Bidens, the text that came out last night with the ambassadors talking about, are we withholding aid, until there's an investigation to help his campaign. Yesterday he said, let's have China investigate the Bidens too. I mean, would you be comfortable with the Democratic president doing that against, let's say it's against Nikki Haley in a couple of years? Elizabeth Warren's saying China should investigate her. Would you be comfortable with that?
Well, I think that President Trump is a disruptor. He's changed the way that we talk about the presidency, certainly. But I don't think he's the first one that started it. Certainly President Obama talked about people that didn't agree with him as gun-toting people that cling to their religions. I think that the rhetoric on both sides, again, has become hyper-partisan. And we're losing sight of there's always a right side, there's a left side, and in politics, we govern from the middle. It's more about compromise. And I wish that we would get back to that. I wish that we would applaud people from the other side when they do something right. And it doesn't seem like that conversation has started.
Do you want to applaud anyone on the left for doing something right?
Yeah, I always want to applaud somebody on the left from doing something right. And of course, I'm focused in on the state of Rhode Island, because that's my job, to make sure that we get more Republicans elected to the state legislature. I would like to applaud Governor Raimondo for appointing Commissioner Angela Infante Green. I think that she has done a good job. She's come in, she's identified issues. Now let's let her do her job. I want to applaud that. I think that our legislators on both sides of the aisle need to applaud each other when they do something right. Just because it's not your idea doesn't mean it's a bad idea.
Let's keep local now. now, since you brought up the governor, but another part of the State House, the General Assembly. The next election that you have to focus on, of course, is 2020, and I assume you want to get more Republicans in the General Assembly. Where is your party putting the political capital when you look at the different cities and towns where you might have the best chance to win?
So we've done a deep data dive into looking where we could possibly win, where were races that were very close, where are candidates that we believe can win against very vulnerable Democrats. So we have identified about 39 representative districts and I think about 16 senatorial districts where we're trying to actively recruit candidates to come in and challenge those Democrats. It's a process. Anybody that wants to run for office, please contact us at the Rhode Island GOP. We're recruiting. We will train our candidates starting in February. We have a candidate recruitment training that will last about 4 weeks, and in March they're going to start hitting the ground running.
39 and 16 is 55. Of the 55, where are you right now in terms of how many candidates do you feel like you potentially have for the 55?
Well, certainly we're narrowed in on 10 representative districts that we definitely have candidates for, and on the Senate side, certainly about 5 or 6.
And still a long way to go yet.
It's still a lot of way to go, and that doesn't include at that point our current representatives. We have 9 and 5, so we want to make sure that those representatives are also reelected and support those candidates.
Which Democrat, after you did the deep dive, which Democratic rep is the most vulnerable on the rep side, and which Democratic incumbent is the most vulnerable to the Republicans on the Senate side?
So I think Representative Edwards over in Tiverton, because he championed the evergreen and firefighter overtime, despite the pleas from the town council that they wouldn't go that way. And I think also Representative Caldwell in East Greenwich and Senator Bridget Valverde is very vulnerable.
So you still think, because EG, and you know it well,
right.
EG went pretty blue last time, you think there is room for a fight back? That's not a permanent change in EG?
Absolutely.
We spent a lot of time talking about, or some time talking about the president. Does the Trump administration make it harder for local Republicans when looking at 2020?
Well, no matter what happens at the national level in terms of the president, whether he wins or he loses in 2020, it's not going to really have an impact on what happens in Rhode Island. In Rhode Island, we've had 80 years of Democratic control, and one-party rule is not good for anybody. Again, I think we do have a right side, we have a left side, and we govern from the middle.
You don't think it might drive up numbers for the Democratic numbers in the state in 2020 because it's a presidential election?
Well, I think in a presidential election, you always drive up the numbers, but I want people to focus in on what's happening in Rhode Island. What is happening? Are things great? Look at what's happening in the Providence school system. It's not great, but the Democrats have controlled the state for 80 years. And yet
are we getting a glimpse at the messaging right now?
Absolutely. The messaging is school choice. Why not? Why not school choice? Why not give the parents? There are over 3,000 students that are dying to get into charter schools, and yet the mayor and the governor, nobody's doing anything to give these people an opportunity to actually do what they're asking to do, which was give us some educational choice, opportunities to actually learn.
We're getting up to a break, but 2 quick 2020 questions before we bring Joe Fleming in for the roundtable half. First off, the top of the ticket next year after the president will be U.S. Senator Jack Reed. It's no secret he polls extremely well, as he always has. Do you expect to even field a candidate against Jack Reed? Do you think you'll nominate somebody, or are you just going to say we're not even going to try for U.S. Senate next year?
At this point, no. I'm not even sure if we're going to field a candidate for that. And that's part of the Republican Party problem, is we need to start building our farm team. And that's what we're focused in on 2020. Let's get more people elected to the town council, the school committee, and the general legislature, the General Assembly. Once we start building that field team, you'll have people that have name recognition. And then you can start fielding people for state office. In 2022, all the state offices will be up. We need to start building that farm team.
And finally, there was a big debate at your last state central committee meeting about changing the rules for how you allocate delegates after the Republican primary next year, since President Trump has a couple primary challengers. Did the Trump campaign push you or the other Republican leaders to make it easier for the president to get all the delegates out of Rhode Island?
I felt absolutely no pressure from the Trump campaign to do one way or the other, because I don't think it makes any difference. I think President Trump is going to be the Republican nominee. He's going to win all the delegates, so there was really no pressure. We're a proportional state. state. We remain a proportional state. So there was no pressure from the Trump campaign.
All right, chairperson of the Rhode Island Republican Party, Sue Cienki, you're not going anywhere. Stick around. We're going to bring in Joe Fleming for a political roundtable next on Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. To my left, Eyewitness News reporter Ted Nesi. And for this political roundtable, we bring in our Eyewitness News political analyst, Joe Fleming. And we are joined again by Chairwoman for the Rhode Island State Republican Party, Sue Cienki. Joe, start with you. And I want to begin with the political ripple effects to the impeachment inquiry when we look at the 2020 presidential race here. Now, put aside whatever happens with the impeachment inquiry, because that would have a profound effect depending on which way that goes. But purely through the political spectrum, you have to think that this whole ordeal is actually bad for the Biden campaign.
It's not good for the Biden campaign. There's no question about that. The president keeps mentioning Biden. There's no facts to it at this point, but Joe Biden has to keep defending it and talking about that type of thing and trying to throw it back at Donald Trump. The more he defends it, the less he can talk about his issues. And now, even though there's no facts, people are starting to question things about Joe Biden. We're seeing Elizabeth Warren's numbers go up. She's about even with Joe Biden right now. So, I mean, there's no question. This is trouble for Biden at this point in the campaign.
Yeah, Ted, as Joe said, Elizabeth Warren's numbers are going up. I suppose bad for Joe Biden. We'll see what happens with President Trump. But for all the other Democratic candidates, they almost have to just sit back and watch this one.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's interesting is, usually you'd expect at this time of year, especially as we get closer to Iowa and New Hampshire, the presidential race would be just the only topic in politics. Impeachment's going to stay, arguably, a lot of days, the number one story, and the Democratic primary is second. And that's going to be harder, too, for the lower polling candidates, I think, because other than on debate nights, people are going to be, the evening newscast is going to say, here's what Biden said today, here's what Warren said today, here's what Bernie said today, and the others were doing their thing, and there's not as much time for them. So I think this could sort of freeze the race for a little while, but honestly, we're in such an uncertain period that it's hard to make any predictions.
Go ahead.
People always say it's too early to pick or choose a winner, but Joe Biden was polling very high. I think that's gone away, and poor Bernie was in the hospital. So you're right. Elizabeth Warren is just going to take off now.
Part of Joe Biden's support was the fact that he was the best known candidate running. Right. So people are going to him. Now they're seeing the other candidates. Elizabeth Warren in a lot of states has been building a strong organization, and in turn they're getting to know her better. And I think when people compared her to Bernie Sanders, what was happening, the same way, wait a minute, she seems a lot more reasonable than Bernie Sanders, and he's lost a lot of support to her. And that's why her numbers have gone up.
I do still wonder, from watching primaries in the past, if there's a chance for one of these lower polling candidates to be the other candidate, right? Maybe as it gets to the end and it starts to shake out, maybe a Cory Booker or an Amy Klobuchar could see some updrift in a place like Iowa or New Hampshire as people look for, is there an alternative to the front runners right now? I'm not predicting that, but I think there's probably only like one spot left in the time left for somebody to make an impression. And don't forget, too, it's going to go fast this time because the states are so front-loaded. We could know who the nominee for the Democrats is in March.
Chairwoman, you...
Wait, that's before the Republican primary. You're saying we don't matter.
Hey, I want them all to come to Rhode Island, but...
So we'll get no Democratic candidates and no Republican candidates here. We really don't matter.
You disclosed something before the show. Cienki is what? What kind of name is it?
It's actually Ukrainian, so I'm very excited that we're talking about the Ukraine. I thought, when my kids went to school, people would say, oh, is that a Russian name? And they go, no, it's Ukrainian. So I'm very excited about this.
I've watched with interest Trump's approach to this now. Again, we're only a couple weeks in. I should note, we're taping this on a Friday, and you're probably watching on a Sunday. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 48 hours? But it seems to me the president is now just sort of owning it. He's trying to normalize having these interactions with foreign powers about looking into Biden. It feels very much like his 2016 media playbook.
Yeah, the president has to actually converse with other leaders from foreign countries. That's part of the job. The president is certainly a disruptor. He's certainly changed the way that we talk about the presidency. He's certainly talked very different than certainly previous presidencies. But I'd like people to also go back in history and say, is this the worst thing that ever happened? I think people forget about the Harding presidency and Teapot Dome. And why didn't we talk about that more? Well, because Warren G. Hardin died. So there have been scandals and things that have happened in the past. I want people to start focusing on how we move forward as a country. What exactly is the benefit of what we're trying to do? And again, follow the process. If the president actually did something that rises to the level of high crimes and misdemeanor, let's go through the process.
All right, let's talk about a U.S. Senate race up in Massachusetts. Congressman Joe Kennedy has decided to primary Senator Ed Markey. Hot take for you, Joe, here. In that race, Joe Kennedy is going to have to work very hard to boost his name recognition.
It's really tough being a Kennedy from Massachusetts.
And that's what this is about, right? I mean, what does Ed Markey have to do to counter the Kennedy name?
Well, I think Ed Markey has to show what he's done in the Senate, what he's done in Congress over the years, that he's a better choice for Massachusetts than Joe Kennedy. I think at this point it's going to be tough for Ed Markey. His polling numbers have always been fairly low as far as job rating, if I'm correct. And I think he has to try to build that up. He has to spend a lot of money to do that. He has money, but again, the Kennedy is going to have unlimited money. And again, it's the aura of the Kennedys. Is that still going to play in Massachusetts? That could help Joe Kennedy a great deal. No matter what Ed Markey does, the aura of Kennedy may just help him so much it'd be tough to overcome.
I will say, Ed Markey, you have to give his campaign credit, and they had a shakeup initially, even with who's in charge, but they've come out aggressive. They know they're running as an underdog. You have an incumbent senator running as an underdog. It's fascinating. They came out an hour before Joe Kennedy announced. They said we want to debate him in November. The Kennedy people have already been having to figure out their debate strategy. He's gotten strong support from progressive and environmental groups, which is the Ed Markey base, to push back at Joe Kennedy. So I still think even they would agree he's the underdog, but you can tell they're not taking any, they understand their situation, which is the first thing they have to do.
Well, we've seen that exact same thing in Rhode Island back in ancient days, 1972. Claiborne Pell against John, 76, I think it was. Claiborne Pell against John Chafee. And Chafee had a 25-point lead on Pell early on the race. Pell was the underdog and ran as an underdog to win the race.
No, you were right first time. It was
72. You're right. Yeah.
I think you've given me an idea. I'm going to tell all my candidates just a Kennedy in your name, and they'll get it.
It's worked before.
Right, exactly. It puts sort of the delegation both in Rhode Island and in Massachusetts in a kind of a tough spot, doesn't it?
It's awkward. I mean, historically you just say, well, they're all going to be with the incumbent, right. But many of them were Kennedy people before they were Markey people, right?
Congressman Cicilline, you think of Kennedy supported him?
If anyone in Rhode Island will go with, because already Senator Whitehouse and Senator Reid said they're sticking with Ed Markey. He's their current colleague. Jim Landry doesn't want to touch it. He says he's not going to endorse anybody. And Congressman Cicilline, he and Joe Kennedy are fairly close. Their districts border each other. They've worked together on a bunch of stuff. Kennedy stood there for Cicilline when he went for House leadership last year. So I think he is almost certainly toying with endorsing Kennedy. But as you said, it's awkward. There's people who get mad on the progressive side, which is part of David Cicilline's base. So it is. It's a fight within the family for the Democrats.
Before I go back to Rhode Island, just a quick question to you and Ted. One thing we can't overlook is now that Congressman Kennedy, whether he wins or loses in the U.S. Senate race, the District 4 is open in Massachusetts, and that's a big part of our viewing area. A lot of people watching here live in District 4. Is anyone outside of Brookline running in District 4?
Right now it looks almost like a Brookline town council race or select board, because if you picture the district, it goes from Newton and Brookline down to the Attleboro's and Taunton to the northern part of Fall River. But all 5 candidates from the Democratic side right now, and there's no Republicans. Sun Chronicle had a good piece today that the Republicans are all sort of like, we don't know if we're going to even do anybody, as you thinking with Reid. Everyone is from Brookline and Newton. And so what I'm watching to see is, do any of these candidates try to say, yes, I'm from there too, but look at, and already Jessie Mermel, who was, and I apologize, I'm mispronouncing it because this race is new to me, but she was Governor Patrick's spokesperson.
Right.
She's been coming down to Fall River. She's got events this weekend in Attleboro. She's saying, I get it, you think we're just Boston people, but we know this district is bigger than that. I think that's going to be one of the fights in this campaign, when they're all coming from this little part of the district at the north.
Less than 2 minutes left. Joe, I asked the chairwoman about the General Assembly race and the Republican strategy to gain seats. What are you looking for from the GOP in 2020?
I think Sue is 100% correct, the strategy she's doing. However, I've heard that from many Republican chairs over the years in the state of Rhode Island. They're always going to focus on the General Assembly. I think there's 3 things she has to really work on. One is finding candidates, but quality candidates, not just people who've run many times and thrown their names in. 2, she has to be able to raise money for these candidates. If they don't have the money, they can't get the message out. She said to some people that want to go against, with no money, you can't get the message out. And the third thing is to build an organization within their districts. It can't be a single person just going door to door. They have to have an organization to help them. If they don't have those 3 things, they're not going to make inroads. But going for 55 seats is a lot better than going for all 138.
Chair, any reaction to that with less than a minute?
I absolutely agree, and I've said over and over, my 3 things are money, message, and manpower. We've got a great message. We need the money, and we certainly need the manpower, and you're absolutely right. I would absolutely like to have quality over quantity, and that's what we're looking for. Good quality candidates. And who is that? Well, anybody that runs a household budget has the impetus to let's run. Let's fix a $10 billion state budget. That's just outrageous to me.
Sue Cienki, chair of the state Republican Party, Eyewitness News political analyst Joe Fleming, Ted Nesi, thank you all very much for joining us on this political roundtable. If you missed any of it, it's online, WPRI.com, and don't forget our podcast through iTunes. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.